Okay, today we're going to talk about crimping on power connector ends to use in your Yamaha Wolverine. I got all of my plugs in pins from Corsa Technique. It's www.corsa-technique.com. Prices are really good. They ship very quickly. The majority of the connectors that everybody's using are these white 2-pin connectors. There's one right here. You can get them in either white or black. I got both because my speaker harnesses had black, so I wanted them to match. And inside these 2-pin connectors, they have 2 pin sizes. Although I have to say up front, I looked at these under a heavy magnifier, and I can't even see one difference in the size. This is pin 1, and it says it's good between 16 and 22 gauge. And then this is pin 2, it says it's good for 14 gauge. But like I said, I've put them under magnifying lamps and looked at them and measured them, and to me, I think they're exactly the same, but there's the 2 sizes. Now then, you also have the waterproof connectors that go into the back of the connector, and they come in 2 sizes. These are the small ones, the green ones, and they're between 1.3 to 1.7 millimeter. And then you've got these black ones, and they go from 1.7 to 2.7 millimeter. Now, the first thing I'm going to say is a lot of the wire that I use is bigger than 2.7 millimeter. You can still use these with the larger wire. Here's a perfect example here. Here's the one that I've already made for my speaker harness. This is 16 gauge oxygen-free copper, but the jacket is pretty fat on it. So this is about, I would say, max for that connector. You can use it. The waterproof connectors go in, just like you see. I had to use a small flat blade screwdriver and play around with the waterproof parts to slide them in because they are stretched out because of the fatter jacket on this cable, but it still works. So what I'm going to do is we're going to show you right over here, in fact. This is what you're going to need to get the job done. You're going to need cutters, wire strippers. These are crimpers that I got off eBay. You see them labeled A, B, C, D, E. Okay, and I'll put a link to that down in there. You're going to need a little pick tool or a hook, the flat blade screwdriver, the little one I told you about that I used to push in the waterproof connector, and then a red Sharpie. Now, the first thing I do, oh, and by the way, on your Wolverine, when you go to the accessory plugs that are under the hood, the 4 or 5 of them that are under there already have a female on them, and they just have plugs pushed into the end to stop water from getting in. When you want to use your accessory, you can just pull this off, pull these plugs out, and I'll show you in a second how to do that. First thing I do is I always mark the side that's positive. Now, these connectors are going to have brown and black wires that are under the hood of the Wolverine. So I just put a little red mark on the side so I know that's the positive side, because the last thing you want to do is plug these in. They're a pain to get out once they're in. So let me put the camera in the stand here. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the little connectors out. So all you do is stick that in. They're silicone. They're going to come out pretty easy. And the edge is right there. Oh, it was going to come out easy till I poked it. Well, I'll show you on this side. So you put it in. See, of course, that one popped right out. Now we got to try and get this one out. There we go. There's our ends. So we don't need those little waterproof caps. What we are going to need is we're going to need 2 of the black ones. Right there. We're going to say we're using 16 gauge connectors or 14 gauge connectors, but they're, like I said, from what I've seen, they're the same. There's really no difference. Alright, so we're going to get another one of these out. Now these you have to trim down. I'll show you in a sec. Okay, so we've got our 2 connectors. What you want to do is just take your dikes and you just want to cut them just like that, so it's a single pin. Okay, so we've got our 2 pins ready to go. So now we're just using 16 gauge oxygen-free copper wire. I'm going to take your wire, just split the ends so you can peel it apart. Okay, now you take your first connector, and what I like to do is I just hold it over it right to where the end of the copper is going to go and to where the end of the jacket is going to go. Then I hold my fingernail against it. Then I get my wire strippers and I bring them up, put the wire strippers over it, squeeze, pull that off, and there's your end. I give it a little twist because sometimes when you're pushing it in, the strands tend to spring up. So now we're going to see how it fits after I did that. And it fits really well. It's right in the crimp joint. I'm hoping this is clear enough. You can see the copper's completely into where it's going to be crimped, and so is the rubber jacket. So now what we're going to do is we're going to pick up the crimpers, and I always start off with the letter D on the copper. You're going to go into the female side of the crimper, and you're going to position it in there, and you're going to just start to push it in a little. Now we're going to get it to go back a hair. Alright, so that's perfectly where it should be to do this crimp, and we're going to squeeze. Okay, and you can see it made a perfect crimp on it. Now I like to go just a hair tighter, so then I go over to E and I put it in E, and it only crimps it just a hair more, but I found that that makes a really good. So now you'll see the crimp on it is really, really good. So now we have to crimp the jacket. Now I squeeze this a little first because positioning the jacket, we're going to go to C to do that. Positioning the jacket I find trickier than positioning the copper, you know, getting everything lined up. So there we are lined up, and we're going to start to squeeze, and you can see we made a perfect crimp there. It's right there. Well, now that that's done, we can stick one of these over it, which we probably should have done before, but they fit right over. They're soft enough that they go right over. So we'll put our waterproof connector on there. There we go. And for the black side, we'll put it on first. Like I said, they go right over the connector, but you should really put them on first, but I forgot. Alright. So now we've got those on there. So now we're going to take the next pin. Okay, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to measure here, right there. Pick up our strippers. We're going to go right there, squeeze and pull. There's our end. Okay, we're going to hold up our pin, fit it. Okay, this one, the copper's a little long, so we're going to give it just a little trim. There we go. Let's see if that worked out better. Yes, fits perfectly. Same thing. We look for the letter D, female side. We're going to position this into D. Give it a crimp. Nice crimp. Now we're going to go over to E. Squeeze that little bit. I only do that when we're doing this smaller gauge wire. When you're doing larger gauge wire, you don't really need to do that because it really bites. Now again, I squeeze the sides there. I'm going to go to C. And we're getting her lined up. She's lined up. Another great crimp right there. Came out beautiful. So now remember we had marked this with the side with the positive. So now if you look down in there, you'll see that one side is just plain square and the other one looks like it has a little raised edge. The raised edge is what's going to fit in here and snap it closed. So you put it in, so, and you hear a little click and it goes in, and you hear a little click and it goes in, and then you take your waterproof ends and you slide them down, and you take your little screwdriver and you just push them in, and they will go in. Work your way around. We're almost done with the one side. Okay, your one side we got to push right there. I think this is the worst job to do than actually crimping them, is getting these to sit inside perfectly. Okay, that one's in on the ground. Okay, I'm going to push it in just a hair more. I'm going to start to do this one. Getting there. Now, I was thinking about making a tool to do this, like a little barrel that would slide over with a slot you could put over the wire, and then you could just push them right in. Because this is always the, you think you got it, then it pops out, you think, you know, you're done. I will say though, once you do get them all the way in, they don't come back out. And I think this one just doesn't want to agree. Oh, close. And I've done lots of these, and the rubber's always a pain. And there we are. Okay, so now we've got both of them in. In fact, we could even push in the black one a little more. It is in, but I like to get them just in a little past. Okay, so there you go. There's your connector with your black waterproof ends, and it's ready to go. And plug it right in your harness, and then run this wire wherever you need to go, and you'll have your switched accessory. Now, those black rubber pieces are a lot harder to get in if you use thicker jacket wire. You just got to work it. You might want to put a little bit of lube on it to get it in. They make wire lube, and wire lube will evaporate pretty quickly, but it'll allow those to slide in a little bit quicker. And again, same thing. On the speaker wire, I mark which one's the positive, because on these thick jackets, you do have a round cable on one side, and this one's kind of D-shaped. It's got a flat side, so I always use the round side as the positive. But you can use whichever one. Just remember which one you made positive. So that's how you terminate the ends, and I will put links to everything down at the bottom. Thanks for watching.